Hi everyone. It looks like we've got a few of you here already. So good morning to those of you in North America and good evening to people in the UK and Europe, and welcome to everyone else. It'd be great, just while we're waiting for a few more people to trickle in, if you could say hello in the chat and let us know what country you're in, just to help us get a feel for who is with us today. Some of you might see in the comments section, if you try and type in, that it says create a channel to join the chat. You can do that by clicking on the button, just accepting your channel, and then you can come back to the webinar via the original link if you haven't already been able to do so. Don't be shy, go ahead and say hello. There we go. Hi Majid, familiar face. Hi Brad, hi Brittany, hi Demetra, hi Lucy. Scott's here. Hi Scott. Looks like it's all working. That's good. So we're gonna be sending around the link afterwards. So if anyone else comes in later on, we'll forward on the link so that they can watch back. But yeah, cool. There's just a few more people coming through. Great stuff. So I'm just going to bring up Joel and Lucy, who are sitting in the background as well. So I'll bring up their profiles. Here we go. Maybe I'll make them a bit bigger.
Hello everyone.
Perfect. So we'll get started. A lot of hard work has gone into creating this new tool for you. So to see so many of you showing an interest in the solution is really rewarding for everyone that's been involved. We'd like to use this time to introduce you to our new report automation software, SlideGen. Before we get started, here with me today we have Joel. Joel is our head of product, who has been instrumental in getting the solution ready for you today. He'll be sticking around throughout, and he'll be here at the end of the session to answer any questions that may have come up throughout. And we also have Lucy here, whose second day it is with us today, so throwing her in the deep end. She's our new product marketing specialist, and she's been tasked with helping out to make sure this whole webinar doesn't fall apart in the background. She'll also be monitoring the comments and things like that. So if you have any questions or any issues, just pop a note in the comments, and Lucy will be able to get back to you. I'll hide them both now. Bye Joel, bye Lucy. We'll see Joel later. Don't worry about that. There we go. Okay, so before we get into it, here's a quick overview of what you can expect from us today. The agenda for today is a demo of the new software. That's what you're all here for. It's more detailed than I was planning, but obviously we don't cover absolutely everything. So do feel free to submit any questions as they come to mind along the way, and we can hopefully answer those for you at the end of the session. Or we can set up a one-to-one demo for you next week or whenever suitable as well. We'll give you some details about how you can do that a little bit later on as we wrap up the session. And then following the demo, there's a short chat with Richard Green, who's Insights Manager at IGD, where he talks about his experience of using the pre-launch version of SlideGen. So that'll be interesting because he gives some of his background experience of how he uses it and how it might be valuable to them as a company as well. We'll then wrap up the show and tell section of the webinar. But at that point, we'll also let you know how you can enter the prize draw for your chance to win a voucher worth £200. And also how you can book a personal demo or trial of the software as well. At that point, anyone who wants to drop off there is very welcome to do so, but we'll also be sticking around for another 15 to 30 minutes to answer any questions that have come up. So the questions section is entirely optional, But to summarize, 30 minutes of us talking and then 15 to 30 minutes of us answering some questions. Before jumping into the demo, I'd like to kind of frame the webinar by telling you why SlideGen exists today. Pretty much all of us at Indico Labs come from a market research or analytics background. We've all very much lived and experienced the pain of generating PowerPoint reports. From that experience, we found that the process was firstly time consuming and frankly dull. We honestly felt as though the entire process, from exploring the data and picking out the themes and key insights, all the way through to quality checking the deliverables, was broken. Most importantly, we felt that a lot of your valuable time is lost in populating and updating the slides that already exist. Now, there are some obvious report types where this issue is exaggerated. Think international reports, trackers, and especially appendix style sections that actually don't add a lot of value to the customer, but take a lot of time to produce. But beyond that, we understood from our existing customers that even for ad hoc and custom reports, the starting point is often to design the slides based on interim data or predefined objectives with the end customer. If not that, then you're often picking and choosing pre-existing layouts from previous reports to help you get going. We wanted to empower you and other researchers with a tool that A, still allows you, your client, or your design team to create the slides exactly as you want them in PowerPoint, and B, efficiently populate, reuse, and refresh those slides when needed. So you spend less time on actually redesigning the reports, less time copying data from Excel to PowerPoint, and more time interpreting the results and providing meaningful insights to your customers. Not only that, but by removing the copy and paste element, we can significantly reduce the likelihood of human error and the need for hours of quality control that the traditional method requires. This is essentially the mission of SlideGen, and that's why we're here today. So let's jump into the demo. Remember, please feel free to add your questions as they come to you, and Lucy will be monitoring those for us.
So we're going to start with an area that's fundamentally different between SlideGen and our previous solution. And actually, the first comment that we're going to show you from one of our testers touches on our old workflow, but also the workflow that other report automation systems have. This tester says, I really like how the focus is on designing in PowerPoint and then updating it online. Other platforms make you design or replicate your report in their automation software. But to make a slide deck in PowerPoint and then link it up with this product is really nice. I like that a lot. So to put that into context, with SlideGen, you, your client, or your design team can prepare the ideal slides, and our system allows you to populate and reuse those slides time and time again, matching exactly the colors, the formatting, the placement, everything like that when you export it from our software. Putting that into real life context, let's say that my design team have produced this beautiful template for our end client, Wild Roots, a camping equipment and adventure brand. We have a few different slides in here, but I'm going to focus first on slide 3. Once we have populated this with data and exported it from the platform, the spacing between the charts is going to remain exactly the same. The axis is going to be set to 100%. The colors of the bars, including the top bar being this sandy color compared to the other bars being a different color, is all going to be retained by the software. It's just going to be populated with data. We also see that we've got a few different chart types in here, some dividers, and we've even got a table down here at the bottom as well. These slides can be as detailed or as basic as you wish. The point is that you are designing them exactly as you need them in PowerPoint. And at this stage, you only need to include a slide design once. For example, I'm planning to use this table slide multiple times for my appendix section. I don't quite know at this stage how many times I'm going to need to use it, but that's totally fine because I'm going to be able to use this same design over and over again. Now that we have the PowerPoint template, we can start working with it in the SlideGen platform. You can see that I've actually already uploaded the template to the platform here. So I've got my individual slides that I was showing you in PowerPoint. I've also gone ahead and uploaded some crosstab data that was produced using Wingcross, a software that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And looking at slide 3, this slide here, I've already started to add some information to this slide. So I've already mapped data to this chart, the first 2 charts here. I'm actually also pulling in the chart title from the tables itself. I'm using the table title of each of these charts as the chart title. I've manually added the slide title, and I've also mapped the base size here as well, so that if we end up changing the file later on, the base size will dynamically update as well. So I've left this third chart unmapped. It's got nothing in it currently. There is no data source currently. So I'm just going to show you how simple it is to actually map the data to the chart. I'm going to select my data source and whichever question from my tables I want to use. In this case, I want to use my consideration question. And then I'm going to use this handy show table view to just select the total column. And it's as simple as that. That data is now within my chart. So if I download, all of these charts are going to be populated with the data. But before we do that, I want to show you how we can take this a step further by applying what we are calling data transformations. So if we just jump into this slide here, one of our testers said, data transformations really stand out for me. They're so easy to do. It's a lot quicker to rank in this tool than it would be by doing this manually in Excel. So this tester has kind of really hit the nail on the head of what we're trying to do within this product. Our product team have really focused in on the small tasks and transformations that researchers have to perform regularly, but are frustrating, time-consuming, and open to human error. These transformation functions become even more powerful when you begin to combine them and use them in conjunction with one another. So for example, instead of putting the data in order within the Excel or by opening up the data editor in PowerPoint, I can actually take the data frame from this chart that we've already mapped data to and begin applying some of these data transformations. We're going to keep it simple to begin with. I just want to literally sort this data and then pin my brand at the top. So first up, add new action and sort the data. Simple as that. I want to sort by total. And that's done. But Wild Roots now appears second down in the list. I want to just bring that up to the top. If you remember in the PowerPoint, that top bar was a different sandy color. When we export, that's going to be retained, and that is reserved for our Wild Roots brand. So I'm going to use the reorder function, and I'm just going to drag and drop Wild Roots to the top and hit OK. There we go. Now, if I was to do the same on these next 2 charts, if I order on total, my order of answer options is going to be completely different to the original. So none of these, for example, is 73% in purchases. So that's going to be right at the top. I actually want the order to be exactly the same as my aided awareness question. So I'm just going to use a function that we have called copy order. Select my shape to copy from. And there we go. My answer options are now in exactly the same order. And I'm going to do exactly the same here. Copy order. Select my shape. So if I go ahead and download that now, I can show you just this current slide, what that looks like within PowerPoint. We'll touch on a couple of the other transformations as we progress through the demo, but obviously if you want to find out more about those, we can set up individual demos for each of you following this webinar. But next I want to move on to SIG testing. Here's another quote from one of our very kind beta testers, Charles. He says, I really, 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 really love the visuals for the stat testing. Kudos to you guys. That's a nice design. It's clear enough without being overpowering, and it's pleasing to look at. Thank you for that, Charles. This is something that is often essential in market research reporting, but again, is hugely time consuming. So it's something that we put a lot of thought and effort into. And I'm sure that pretty much every time you QC a report for a colleague, a misplaced sig testing arrow is one of the most common errors to come across. It's also one of the most annoying things to check for. So being able to automatically apply it is kind of essential. And that's why we really wanted to take our sig testing capabilities in SlideGen far beyond what was available in our original software. There are two big differences. Number one is that you can now choose how you visualize the differences. And then number two is that it is possible to set up the sig testing once and apply to many with our repeat slide function. First up, sticking on slide number 3, I just want to show you how we can perform what we call a control group test. And I'm actually going to show whether whether the other brands are significantly higher or lower than our main brand, which is Wild Roots. So when I click on the chart, I can navigate down to visual transformations. You can see we have sig testing and percentage indexing. I'm just going to use sig testing. And I want to do a control group test on the rows. And I want to set my control as Wild Roots and test all the other brands against Wild Roots. And I'm going to just remove none of these as well. Hit OK. I'm going to leave the confidence level at 95%. But in the visual settings, this is where you can make some changes. So you have the ability to pick between whether you just want to visualize the sig testing using symbols or color-coded labels or a mixture of symbols and color-coded labels. I like to just add the symbols. You have two options for the symbols right now, and you can also position the symbols as well, either right, left, top, or bottom. I'll keep them on the right. That seems pretty logical to me. And then you can actually change the colors of what those arrows are going to be. I'm going to leave green and red as they are. That's pretty standard. So if I hit OK and then hit apply, you can see that my sig testing has now been applied to these other rows. And I can go ahead and just do the same for purchases and consideration. Moving on to slide 4, I actually want to show you the second part of that, which was how you can set up the sig testing once and then apply to many with our repeat slide function. The repeat slide function is actually a feature on its own. It doesn't have to be used in conjunction with significance testing. And one of our testers said about this functionality, once everything is set up, being able to repeat the same slide over and over again with different data is awesome. The real beauty of this is that you're not just duplicating the slide, you're updating the data and reapplying those transformations and sig testing applications that we've already looked at. So if we go ahead and map some data to this chart here, actually I think I've already mapped the data, but I haven't applied any transformations yet. So we're just going to revisit some of those transformations, a slightly different one. First up, we'll use something we've used before, which was sort by. And I want to sort by camping enthusiasts as my first, and then back up with extreme and outdoor lifestylers. Sort the data. And then what I want to do is only show the top 5. So I can use something called trim to keep the first 5 rows. And hit OK. There we go. So those are my top 5 rows for this brand, Wild Roots. Visual transformations, sig testing, and this time I'm going to test between the columns, and I'm going to perform an all versus all test with, I don't want the brackets around the letters, and I want the letters to be uppercase. Hit apply, and that sig testing has been applied to this chart now. So moving on to the repeat slide function, I can now take everything that we've done to this slide, and rather than have to do that for every single brand, of which I think there were 10 or 12, I can just use repeat slide and say, okay, let's do this for Summit, Trek, Nomad County. And these are all just individual tables. So I'm just selecting the individual tables from the data set that I've uploaded. And then I'm just going to hit OK. The software has gone ahead and repeated those slides. It's also, as I mentioned before, repeated the transformations, but on the data frame that is relevant to it. So obviously, Summit has a different top 5 to Wild Roots. But the SIG testing has also been applied. So it's not only sorted the data, trimmed to keep the top 5, it's then also applied the SIG testing. If you go ahead and download all of these slides, I can show you what that looks like in PowerPoint. There we go. So my SIG testing letters are being applied where relevant, and I have different data for each of these slides, once for each brand. So this is our final report. I've also gone ahead and added some additional slides. So we had this section on brand statements. There were a number of brand statements, and they wanted to show each of those against an agreement scale with the total column plus our key segments, and then a gender comparison as well. So we've mapped in all of those columns plus the top 2 boxes and the actual statement and the base sizes for each of those groups too. And then we use the repeat slide function to do that for each and every one of the statements. As you can imagine, this would have taken maybe hours to do manually, but it only took a couple of clicks in the platform. And then at the end here, we also have an appendix section. I just wanted to show you how we can work with tables. So this was a table that was designed in PowerPoint, and then we've mapped the data to it. And just to show you what that looks like in PowerPoint, here's the downloaded version. So if we start at the top, we have our title slide, which you need to add some details to, a bit more information, our charts with the SIG testing applied. And then we also have, if we keep on going down, our brand statements. Those are all mapped and perfect. And then we also have this appendix section. Once we've mapped all of this data and we've produced a report, this isn't where the functionality ends or the value ends within the software. Looking at another statement from one of our testers, this is something that's really common with our users, and it's a perfect use case for the software as well to really get some great value out of it. So this tester says, some of our clients may receive 4 or 5 country reports. They will all be exactly the same in design, and it's just the market that changes. So to be able to click 1 or 2 buttons and have a whole new report updated, as opposed to spending 4 or 5 days, is a real game changer. So what Nicole is really referencing here is our switch data functionality, which essentially allows you to set up all of this mapping once, including your transformations and your SIG testing and everything like that, but then swap the file behind it, the data file, or the set of data tables behind it for a different version. So jumping into the platform, I'm going to pull in the US data now. Just to show you again, we have all the different slides in here. And in my data sources, on this first data source, which the whole report was built on, I'm just going to swap this using the switch data functionality for our US file. It's going to check compatibility for me. There are no compatibility issues, and hit OK. There we go. And the very keen-eyed of you out there will have noticed the data change at that point. If the base sizes were different, the sample sizes would have updated. My charts have all updated. So we can go ahead and download that now. To circle back to the original point, when we do export the slides from the platform, the style and design completely matches the style and the design of the slides that we uploaded. So I just want to wrap up this section with a few more quotes from some of our beta testers that really touch on the value that they're getting from the software and the type of value that you would get from using SlideGen, but also just to summarize what we've really been trying to achieve by creating this new version of our software. So just first off, just to touch on the workflow feels right. I want to do one slide well and then populate across. It's really that produce once, apply to many kind of mentality that we've been building into the software here. And then just a couple on accuracy and room for error. There's even less room for error in this new version. Because there's more functionality in slide duplication, you definitely won't miss anything. And then on a similar theme, it takes away the human error of copying and pasting data into a chart. You know that everything is accurate. It gives you peace of mind. And then I thought this one was really nice. I really wanted to pull this one out because it's a really good point at the end of this quote. It saves you time on the admin tasks of report creation and gets you to the process of analyzing the data quicker. It fast tracks you to analyzing the data. I thought that was a really good summary of what we're trying to achieve. But then this one really, really sums it up. The final one, dedicated to its own slide for you. The app feels like having an extra person on the team that will do all of the work that you don't want to do. It will help level up your team.
So there you go. Hopefully you all have a good understanding of some of the basics of what's possible within SlideGen. Feel free to keep adding questions if you have any at this stage. We'll answer some of them. I can see that Madge is very helpfully answering some questions as well. But any that we don't get to as part of this, we will answer at the end. So add your questions as they come up as well. Yeah, and if you're already a little bit fed up with hearing my voice, don't worry, this section's a bit different. We drew on some of the comments from our pre-launch testers during that demo there. Now we're going to take 5 minutes to hear some direct feedback from Richard Green, who has been part of the testing and feedback process since the beginning of the summer. Before we jump in, just a bit of background on Rich and IGD. And actually, I have a QR code to pop up for you as well. There we go. So I've just popped up a QR code in the top left-hand corner. Richard is an insights manager at IGD and a customer of our original PowerPoint generator software and our automation services. Rich joined IGD back in the start of 2022, and we've been working with him ever since then. But before that, he's worked at a number of familiar agencies, including SMG and Ipsos. IGD, or the Institute of Grocery Distribution, I can see why they made it an acronym, is an organization of two interconnected communities. For commercial, IGD provide insight and foresight across the food and consumer goods industry. And for social impact, IGD has a unique ability to convene stakeholders across the food and consumer goods industry to address the economic, social, and environmental issues that matter to us all. I will share a link to Rich's profile after the webinar in case you'd like to reach out to him and ask any questions. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help out. There's also a QR code in the top left of the screen that I added with a link to the IGD website in case you're interested in exploring their services. So don't forget, please feel free to add comments and questions as we're going through, but let's jump into the video.
I think we've spent a lot of time as a business investing in looking at different platforms, and there are a lot out there, and some main players that I think a lot of people will know about in terms of just kind of data analysis and being able to take data and visualize it. But we've been working with Indico Labs for a couple of years now, and I feel like the new platform is a real evolution in terms of being able to automate a lot of the work that we do. And automation, I think just within market research, is a really big thing at this moment. A lot of people are looking to take away some of the legwork in analyzing things and making things nice and simple and concise, and getting messaging across and working on the story element of what we should be doing within market research. And looking at SlideGen and what it does, and experiencing that myself, it doesn't have all of these buttons and complication that you get sometimes with other platforms. It's very straightforward. It's not too complicated. The functionality is, we know from the previous system how that worked. It's very similar in that sort of respect. The ability to take all the different data files now, it's not just one as well. We can take two. We had a kind of requirement that we had an SPSS file that we weren't really using from the work that we regularly do. We're now able to take that and to be able to use that within the platform and do some sort of manual work around that outside of the regular sort of data tables and things that we have already set up. So, from that perspective, I think its potential for us as a business is much wider than what it previously has been. So that'd be my take.
Next, we just wanted to get a few thoughts on what Rich particularly liked about using the software.
So I think, first and foremost, it's with everything that Indico Labs does, it's really intuitive. So it's really quick and easy to be able to pick up. You're able to take your data straight out of your folders, drag and drop, pop that in there, and off you go. It visualizes and gives you the option then to be able to obviously chart what you need to. You don't really want to spend loads of time, formatting slides. The fact that the templates, ultimately what you're defining, you're putting in that into the system, and that's then being visualized through the platform. I think is a really nice touch. And then when you start going into the data side of things, the ability to, for example, repeat slides is a really strong feature. Saves you a lot of time rather than having to, okay, right, you've done one slide and one chart onto the next slide, or actually it's a very similar data set. You just need to update the data across various tables. You can do that within a matter of seconds. And then, the fact that you can take those multiple data files, which I previously mentioned, I think is a really strong piece, because you're then able to take much more than just, one data file, one perspective. You can take a load of different files and put it into one template, which is a real strong piece within the system. And I think it can be used very widely across our business.
And finally, kind of most importantly for us, we really wanted to get a feel for what it would mean to not just IGD, but also to people like Rich, whose job it is to create these reports, to have a tool like SlideGen.
So I think first and foremost, there's a huge time-saving element of what this would do within our business. I think everyone within market research is obviously looking for efficiencies. You want to be spending time in terms of doing finding the whys, whats, and hows and wheres within the data, rather than spending time just copying and pasting pieces from Excel into PowerPoint, for example. This takes away all of that. And I mean, from our own perspective, just the current solution that's out there at the moment in time has saved us a hell of a lot of time. So enough to probably equate to one analyst in terms of what sort of time is equated to over the course of a year. If I look at that from a wider perspective and what this new SlideGen piece does, as you're aware, I think there's a wider use case for this within our business. And with that, if I scale what we've already learned from the current platform, what this new platform could produce for us is a whole load of time saving and a lot of cost efficiency from our perspective. So, I think that that in itself is return on investment, right? I think there's a lot of time saving, a lot of efficiency. That said, the quality of our outputs are also better. So that quality control element of being able to make sure that everyone's following the same kind of way of working is also a real, I think, an underlying strength in terms of what the platform can provide.
Okay, great. So I'd like to take a moment to thank Rich for his time and support. I hope you found that useful. Our ultimate aim is to create software that helps you work more efficiently in a way that's enjoyable. So having access to the thoughts and opinions of our customers is so important to helping us do that. And we're already talking to Rich and others about what we're doing next. So that kind of concludes the show and tell section of the webinar. Before we jump into questions, we're offering you a chance to enter a prize draw where you can potentially win a £200 voucher or the equivalent. If you made it this far, please scan the QR code in the top left hand and add your details to the form to be entered into the draw. We'll be reaching out to the winner next week. If you like what you've seen so far, or you would like to receive a one-to-one demo where you can talk directly to one of the team, you can also book a demo using the same QR code and scrolling down to the book demo section. Finally, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the pre-launch testing team who gave their time and valuable feedback. There were a lot of people that took part in that, and as I said before, that feedback is really, really important to us, and it helped us get SlideGen to where it is today. I'd also like to thank Joel and the rest of the team who worked hard to make this a reality, and of course you guys for attending and really helping us to validate our efforts. We'll follow up with the recording following this call, and some information regarding pricing and the option for you to pick up licenses before the end of the year with a 10% discount as a thank you for joining us today. For anyone who needs to or wants to, feel free to drop off at this stage, but I'll now hand over to Joel for questions. If you have any, please do go ahead and pop them in the chat. But I'll kick off by first asking Joel what type of projects he sees SlideGen being useful for.
Thanks, Adam. Hello again, everyone. Yeah, so just to come back to, I think you mentioned a couple of these already, but this is definitely well suited to two major kind of different use cases. And the first one I'll talk about is that entire report updating. And if you have, say, for example, international reports or segmentation studies where you have kind of like different data files for each of these, it really lends itself to that kind of reporting. So you can just use that switch data function. So you go through, you set up for one international market, and then you can just swap out the file for US, UK, India, China, whatever it may be. Annotations as well, that's also a really good use case. Kind of similar to that is where you have kind of interim data, and then you can replace that with your final data set. So let's say you've got in half of your respondents, you've run your tables, you kind of get a first pass of the data. So by this point, if you have a template in mind, you can bring that into the platform, map everything at that point, and then when you've got your final data source, again, bring that into the platform using that switch data function. Everything that you've previously set up is now updated again. Final point, if you kind of have these monthly snapshot style reports, that's also a really good use case. So every month you're getting a new data set and you just want to update your report, you can again use that switch data function. Leaning then more onto the repeat slide function, it's really useful where you have these appendix style sections. So you just want to really quickly chart up all of your different data tables. You can do that here. Or if you have even just repetitive sections. So maybe you have a section where it's different questions or different cross breaks. You can use that repeat slide function, map everything on the first slide, the original slide, trigger that function, and you created however many versions you want. The final use case is to also just kind of use it as an ad hoc analysis tool as well. So you can be running those SIG tests, those percentage indexing tests, those benchmarking tests across your tables, and just using the platform as an ad hoc analysis tool. So you can also use it to explore the data before you're even ready for that reporting step as well. I've been kind of monitoring the chat here as well, and please do let me know, guys, if you have any questions. I'll just pick up this one from Brittany, who asked, does SlideGen integrate with Microsoft for Mac? And thank you, Majid, for coming back to us. But if anyone's not monitoring the chat, SlideGen is a cloud-based solution. So what that means is all you need is your PPTX file, your template, and your data source file, and there's a number of different data source files that the platform can accept. You just bring these into the platform. This is where you're doing the work, and then you're exporting a PPTX file as well. So yes, 100%, it could be used for Macs as well. Another question here. So can I apply conditional formatting on tables? Yes, 100% you can apply conditional formatting on tables. A number of different things you can do with conditional formatting. So it works very much like Excel in that sense, greater than or equal to, etc., between two different values. You can bespoke that through the cell background color, the font inside the cells. Kind of similar, you also have the percentage indexing analysis. That will work a little bit like conditional formatting, but it's actually it's a little bit more bespoke. So you can actually do some quite interesting things with the percentage indexing transformation. And I think there was a second part to that question. Can I customize the look and feel of the significance indicators arrows? Yes, I think that was displayed in Adam's demo, but yes, there is a bespoking element to that. So you can choose to display with symbols, you can color code the data labels, you can do both of those. You can then choose between, currently we have 2 different types of symbols, but that's something that we can expand. And you can also play about with the coloring of those symbols as well. So if that, and what's really helpful about that is that if you have company branding within your template, you can match those colors. So it will take hex code colors, you can pick RGB, whatever way that you need to put in the color input, we can take that and then we're going to match those arrows. Another one here, do the files need to be the same when you use the switch data function? So the great thing about the switch data function is it's quite dynamic in the sense that we are going to match across the table name. So let's say you've included a new question in this this wave of the data, and now the tables are kind of in a slightly different order. That's no problem because we're going to match according to the table name. Similarly, if you've added a new option to a question, again, we're going to look at the table and we're going to look at everything inside that table. And depending on how you've mapped that into the chart or table object in the platform, we'll be able to grab those new rows as they are added into the data source. Thank you for the question, Jeremy. If there's any final questions. Okay, well, if there is any questions, please don't hesitate to get in contact with myself. I'm sure Adam can share my email at the end. So yeah, I think that's it from me. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so if you scan the QR code, you can, when you submit the form to enter the prize draw, feel free to ask any questions as part of that as well. But as always, there's the ability to schedule a personal demo if you're interested, and there'll be a way to communicate with us if you want to just email us directly. All of that information we'll share with you when we follow up with an email. It'll probably be tomorrow or Monday, depending on when the download is available to us. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. It'll fall into your inbox either tomorrow or Monday. And thanks again for joining. It's been really nice to see so many of you interested in this new solution.